Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I am ChimereNicole, and today we're going to be talking about standing on business. And what I mean by standing on business is I mean really showing up for yourself. And so we're going to talk about a little bit of what that means, what that entails, and some practical ways that you can show up for yourself and stand on business this year. So for the last few weeks, I've been really talking about self-love, self-care on my channel, and I really wanted to kind of dive into this particular topic because I find that at the root of a lot of the issues that we face, especially as women, is that we do not practice what we preach, and that even entails standing on business. And so a lot of us want to do some great things this year. We have some plans that we've written down at the beginning of the year. We have our journals and our affirmation boards and all of those beautiful things that we create to kind of keep us motivated. But in terms of putting all of these things into practice, that is where we struggle. So today we're going to talk about how we can put all of those things that we talked about, all those things that we've been wishing for and dreaming of, how we can actually put a plan together and make some practical changes that are going to help us get to that goal. So typically when we talk about standing on business, we're talking about that in relation to a relationship with our spouse, with our boyfriend, situationships. Y'all know how that go. But today we're going to take that same concept of standing on business and we're going to apply that to our personal lives. Meaning we're going to be standing on business for ourselves, by ourselves, with ourselves. The number one way to stand on business this year is to show up for you. Now you're going to be showing up for you not because of what it looks like to other people, what you can gain out of it. You're showing up for yourself for pure self-gratification. And in order for you to stand on business this year, you have to take a few key concepts and put them all together. That includes your self-love, that includes your discipline, and that all encompasses your self-respect. The way that you truly learn to practice self-love is by respecting yourself. And we're going to talk about how to do that a little bit more later on in this video. The concept of self-love is really diving into self-respect. One of the key things that I had to check myself with, and I believe has been a fundamental thing for me moving forward, has been if I love myself enough and I really want to practice my self-love, I have to learn not to disrespect myself and to do everything that I said I was going to do. That's the ultimate form of self-love for me. And so I'm hoping that that can also be a practice for you as well. A lot of times we always hear people say if he wanted to, he would. I've said it too, but I also think that that has to apply to myself. If I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, I would. It's either you're going to find a way or you're going to find an excuse. And for me, if I'm able to find an excuse the first time I think about why I did or did not do something, then I know I really didn't want it. I always like to use my children as a learning tool because as a mom, they have taught me so much, not only about children per se, but they've taught me a lot about myself. And so I realized that my children, they have the capacity to want something and nothing will stop them until they get it. They are not going to make an excuse of why they can't get it. Think about little toddlers. If they see something on the table, they're always going to keep reaching for it. It doesn't matter if they can't reach it. It doesn't matter if it seems far away. It doesn't matter if it's hot. It doesn't matter if, it's sharp or anything like that. When they have their mind on something, nothing is going to stand in their way. And so I had to think about that again, logically as an adult. Why is it that when we want something, we always find an excuse as to why we can't have it, or we always find an excuse as to why we didn't get it? And typically at the source of that excuse is our lack of self-discipline. And so that's why I said learning to have some practical ways and some tips is going to be paramount to our success. So we're going to jump into a few of my personal practical ways that I feel that you can exercise self-love as a way of being more disciplined. And this is how we're going to be standing on business moving forward this year. So I talked about self-love a little bit, but I also want to talk a little bit about self-respect. And I think that self-respect at its core is basically being able to respect the boundaries that you set for yourself and also accepting the boundaries that you have for other people, so that when people cross those boundaries or people don't respect those boundaries, you have enough self-respect to either move on or to check them at the door. I really want to emphasize something that I thought was important even for me on my journey. And this was the major difference between self-respect and self-love, and how, for me, they play a role and they work hand in hand. Self-respect was being able to honor the boundaries that I've placed for myself and the boundaries that I've set for other people. Self-love for me was being able to exercise within those boundaries. Your self-respect is going to keep those boundaries in place. Your self-love is going to help you put those boundaries into practice. So my first tip is going to really start at its core, and it's really just thinking about your foundation. I believe, just like a house, that if you don't have a strong foundation, nothing that you do or put on top of that is really going to last. There's no point in you creating all of these boundaries and all of these stipulations on yourself if at the core you're not solid. So when I thought about my foundation and how I can build that and make that stronger, one of the things that I focused on was my daily routine. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I've kind of shown you what my typical morning looks like. It does vary from day to day, but for the most part, I try to keep a consistent daily routine because it allows me to be disciplined in all of the things that I need to do and accomplish for the day. And so for me, that was a foundational piece, because if my mornings didn't start off right, I knew that the rest of my day was essentially going to be crappy. I focus on my daily practices and the systems that I created throughout the day to help me reach those goals that I had for the day. I focus on my health in all aspects. So not just my physical health, like going to the gym and things like that. I also focus on my mental health. So one of the things that I incorporated into my routine, or making something that was foundational for me, was me journaling in the morning. I knew that if I started my day off with gratitude, it was going to just set me up for success. Because me starting my day off with gratitude and in solitude was a foundational piece for me, because it really helped with my mental health. After that, I focus on my physical health. I like to work out in the morning because for me, it's easier for my schedule. I can get it done and over with. And as I said, it really helps me to set my day up for success. So I focused one of my foundational pieces on my actual health. And like I said, mental, physical, and spiritual. I start my day off with prayer as well. So when I'm doing my gratitude journals, that is my time for meditation. That is my time for prayer. That is when I am really exercising that gratitude. And typically either before or after that, that's when I focus on my physical health. And like I said, sometimes that varies from day to day. And this for me is an act of self-love. So as I said earlier, self-respect for me is being able to set those boundaries and those fundamental things in place, and then exercising that as a way of self-love. So this is a part of the self-love portion for me. Another key element of a foundational piece, and that's also me putting my boundaries in place. One of the boundaries that I've been able to utilize in these last couple of months is not allowing people, places, and things to interrupt my morning routine. If I have to wake up 30 minutes earlier because I know that I had a scheduled Zoom call or I had something going on with the kids' school, then I would make it my business to do either wake up earlier or make sure I would shift something over. For me, my morning routine is a boundary. That is something that I'm just not willing to compromise, because I know that in order for me to love myself and respect myself, I have to respect the boundaries that I put in place for myself. And if I want to have my morning routine be a foundational piece for me and my life moving forward, that's going to help me with my discipline, I have to be consistent in it. Another thing I had to think about in terms of creating those boundaries, it wasn't necessarily if something was negative all the time. It could be something that was positive, but a part of creating those boundaries is, of course, to protect yourself. It's kind of like a fence. It doesn't mean that you don't like your neighbors. That boundary is just to protect yourself. Maybe you don't want to see what they're doing next door. Doesn't mean that you don't like it. So I think of that when I think in terms of my morning routine. As I said to you guys earlier, for me, that has become a non-negotiable. So I had to get comfortable with getting people uncomfortable about the direction I'm taking my life into. And that is a part of the self-love that people often don't talk about, because it's very uncomfortable. And as I say all the time, as soon as you start to do things that don't align with other people's core values, people are going to start looking at you funny. But you have to be willing to risk the life that you want for the life that you have currently. And I have been willing to do that. And so because of that, I've been able to exercise that self-love in a way that is compassionate to myself, but also compassionate to my friends, my family, and people who are in my life who may not understand all the time, but they're seeing the benefits of it. Tip number 3, if you're really serious about standing on business this year, is looking at your daily habits. Now, I've talked about this, of course, extensively for the last few minutes, but I'm just going to reiterate a little bit of what I said and expound upon it a little bit more. Your daily habits are going to be a direct link to your success. And I mean that with all seriousness. And this is, again, one of those things where I had to learn to check myself, because there was a time where I was scrolling on social media all day, all night, when I was like, okay, I know that there's something that I could be doing, but I'm not doing it. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, all of these things that I said I wanted, I don't have. Why don't I have them? I had to look at my daily schedule. So that's literally what I did. I sat down and I said to myself, what did I do yesterday? You know how your iPhone will kind of give you like a synopsis of the amount of time that you spent on your phone throughout the week? One of those weeks I forgot how many hours it was, but it was an extensive amount of hours that it said I was on my phone. And when I thought about that, I said, okay, I didn't have any excessive emails. I didn't have anything that I was working on outside of my business that warranted all of this time that I had on my phone. So I said, well, what was I doing for these X amount of minutes throughout the week? That's when I realized I was mindlessly scrolling on whatever social media platform I was on. I was maybe looking at pictures or whatever I was doing. I just realized that the amount of minutes that it showed me I was on my phone amounted to nothing. I had nothing to show for it at the end of the week. When I realized that, I said, oh, I got to get it all the way together, okay? All the way together. So, like I said, if you're trying to stay on business this year, you got to really start to check yourself and have those hard conversations. It's not going to be an easy thing. Like, literally look yourself in the mirror and say, girl, we got to get it together this year. Your routine, again, is going to dictate your success. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, I can't do that because, you know, it's always something that's going on and this and this, this and that. And again, I had to check myself because I did the same exact thing. The first thing when I was like, why in the world can't I keep this routine? Like, why is it so hard? And I thought about it. It's hard because I make it hard. And it's really just that simple. We have been conditioned to wake up in the morning, brush our teeth and wash our face. We do this instinctively. We don't even think about it. Like, we already know. We already know that this is something that if we don't do, you're going to be looking a mess. Your breath going to stink. You know, like, we know what the repercussions of not doing those things are. And we literally do it each and every day. And we don't bat an eye. We don't think twice. Why is the routine that we're trying to create to get us to our goals so much harder? We have to implement it and make it a part of our day. The more it becomes a part of your day to day and you don't even blink twice, the only way that you can get to this point is if you make it a daily practice. Again, your success is going to lie in your daily routine. So check your daily routine, and that is where you're going to find all of the nooks and the crannies and those places where you can make some changes. They're going to help you get to that long-term goal. Now, tip number 5 is one of the it's not necessarily a practical tip, but it's more so something that I think if you plan on making some changes this year, you really have to take into consideration. And that is, showing up for yourself is not going to be a cookie cutter thing. It is not going to look the same each and every day. We are human, and life is going to life no matter what happens, and being able to be flexible but still being able to stay consistent in your routine is going to be able to help you throughout this journey. I say all this to say that even if you are showing up at 50% capacity, the fact that you decided to show up sometimes is going to be enough, and you have to be okay with not always showing up at 100%. This is something that I struggled with, and I think sometimes I kind of struggle with this a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. Even now, one of the things that I had to learn throughout my process was, no matter how motivated I was or how inspired I was or how impactful I wanted to be that day, life gonna life, okay? Life is going to life, and sometimes things are just going to happen and they are outside of your control. And this is going to lead you to not always feel your best. You're not going to always be on 100, especially me. Now, if I have some coffee, I'm going to be flying, honey. I'm going to be on 110. But every day is not going to be a day where I'm just flying high and I'm so motivated and inspired to just, you know, go and conquer the world, right? So because I knew this, I knew that there are going to be days where my capacity is going to be at maybe 25. I'm not on 100 today. There are going to be days where my capacity is at 35 and even maybe at 10. But even in those low capacity days or those low capacity moments. And I said to myself, I would rather show up with this 15% capacity and give it 100% of what I had versus not show up for myself and disrespect the boundaries, disrespect the self-love that I have put into practice the days before, the months before, the years before, and disrespect myself by not loving myself. And so as we end this video today, that is what I really want you to think about. Again, I know that every day is not going to be the best day, but when you are trying to stand on business and you are doing this for you and you are doing this for the future woman, man that you want to be, you have to realize that even in those moments where you don't feel your best, you showing up at whatever percentage you're on, it's got to be enough. And you got to be okay with that little bit being enough. I would rather you show up and just give it your all. Really put your best foot forward every day and being consistent in doing that versus not show up because you don't feel that you have something valuable or impactful to give to yourself or to the world. So no matter what season you're in, no matter what stage you're in, remember that standing on business is going to vary day to day, week to week, month to month, and even year to year. However, if you continue to be consistent, if you continue to respect yourself, set those boundaries, and really practice self-love each and every day, and be consistent in doing it, you'll be able to change the trajectory of your life this year. So that is it, guys. I hope that this video was informative for you guys, and I hope that you took something away from this video that's going to help you show up for yourself and help you stand on business this year and really transform your mindset and how you see things moving forward. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe and thumbs up this video. You can follow me on Instagram at ChimereNicole, and I will see you guys in the next video.